Good morning, everyone. Microphone check, screen check. Looks like everything is working correctly here. Fantastic. All right. Wonderful. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hopefully everyone is able to rest up, get ready for the day ahead and all that fun stuff. As always, before jumping in on the right side of the screen, because I like messing with myself, make sure to read through the Live Trader Morning Prep PDF. Very important to go through and understand everything that is inside there. Just a quick note for you all before we jump on in today. Of course, on the YouTube side, the broadcast does have between like a 5 and 30 second delay, depending on where you're logging in from, which will definitely impact the timeliness of what I may be talking about at the time. Also, I just want to give a shout out, or take a second to give a shout out to the latest members that joined overnight, last night, this morning, etc. Thank you so much for the support. I'm pumped to have you on the SSFTG family. If you aren't a member yet, you do have a few different options to check out if you're looking to further your trading education and career. The first thing, here on YouTube, check out the join button below the stream. By joining here on YouTube, you gain access to the Discord chat, the extended hours trading room, and that room usually goes until like 10:30 or 11 o'clock until things start slowing down. That's very daily dependent. But again, every member gains permanent access to the Discord chat server, and of course, you get the cool badge next to your name to show your support. It just looks awesome. To understand our trading approach and what it is that we are doing every day in the room, look no further than the Day Trading Academy. This isn't a small PDF guide you're going to finish in an afternoon. Yes, there is a quick start, but if you're looking to get into the meat and bones of stuff here, you're looking at 19 plus hours of study, course material, homework, review, etc. Lots and lots of stuff, so you best tuck in if you're going to be going that route. And then finally, the big kahuna, the Mac Daddy, the VIP. VIPs have exclusive permanent access to the entire daily trading session, non-delayed stream, covering the entire morning from 9 until, again, whenever we close, just depending on what's going on, to ensure that you're on the fastest connection possible, and that way you don't miss a beat along the way. Alongside that, VIPs also have access to the monthly webinars, which we just had one this past weekend, private events, one-on-one scheduling access, all kinds of cool stuff. So whether you're here for the very first time or you are a seasoned veteran over on the Zoom stream, welcome. I'm glad to have you trading alongside with me today, analyzing these crazy markets of ours and seeing what's all in store for us here, huh? Don't forget to grab your morning DP levels. Those are posted for you this morning across the major 7 markets that we trade: NASDAQ, S&P, gold, crude, euro, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. Looking at the news for today to give us an idea as to what to expect from that perspective, or what not to expect. The only thing we have today, 10 o'clock news, that's the CB Consumer Confidence for June. Forecast is 119, previous is 117.2. We do have some medium numbers at 9 o'clock, which should have already happened. The S&P Case-Shiller, HPI, Composite 20, NSA, whatever other acronyms they can throw in there. That forecast is 14.5%, but the only big news that we have today is 10 o'clock. Today is Tuesday, so we have 1630 API weekly oil stock numbers that will come out later this afternoon, give us an idea of what to expect going into tomorrow. Aside from that, though, pretty straightforward. Not a whole lot of news, nothing to really worry about on that front. So let's see what the charts are telling us today. Looking at the NASDAQ, obviously this thing, it just keeps going up. We are talking about some major objectives in the 14,420s to 460s. It went above that. It went to 500s. It overshot that by a good margin on yesterday's rally. Although, to be fair, yesterday's rally feels like it might be running out of steam just a little bit here. Last time we saw, I don't even really want to call it a pullback, but I guess for lack of better words, the last time we saw a pullback, it was a beautiful two-legged correction back, almost identical in length, and then a giant rally to the upside. If we're subdividing this into Elliott wave, which is fairly easy to do this time around because it's so obvious, we have the low to high coming down to the next point, and then this next one, this one blows off way up through the highs and pulls back, again, as per the rules of Elliott wave. If you're unfamiliar, can't break above that previous leg, and the middle leg has to be the longest. So far, that is the case, and usually the final leg is the same leg as the first. Well, if we utilize the first leg, that's back here, that gives us an upside objective that's still a little ways away. Honestly, I wasn't expecting to get up this far, but, with that in mind, let's see here. Let's go from the bottom, bottom to the top, and we'll take that bad boy. Oh, man, Whoo, lordy, we're looking at some big old movement, huh? That projects up, wow, upside movement all the way up to 14,700. So, you know, beforehand, we were talking about the 14,420s to 460s. We've shot through that very aggressively. We've obviously demonstrated enough support to break out through that point. Now, with that said, looking for more continuation, potentially closer to 14,600s, 700s now as things are continuing. Looking at the overall volume perspective from the bottom to all the way to the highs here to see just as a general idea what's going on. Usually if sellers are going to be taking over, we should see some POC shifts. We should see some volume increasing. Here, the POC is still back down here at the 14,110s, and there's some very obvious nodes of volume, but there's not really anything dictating a POC shift. One thing that does stand out, we do have leg one of the volume, speaking of, right? The volume leg inside there, bump one, bump two. What better spot than the third one up here for a POC shift for the market to try to rotate back down again? That would make a lot of sense. So as far as the overall downward momentum, 14,110 is obviously the objective, but until we see a POC shift to the upside, it's hard to say the sellers have taken over, that's for sure. How important is the volume profile indicator for trading? It's contextual, obviously. For me, I find the volume, especially more so going in, you know, the later part of 2020 into 21, with the induction of the micros is a big push that really helped a lot, in my opinion. I find the order flow to be invaluable now. A few years ago, my opinion would have been drastically different because it was super easy to hide orders, shove orders under the carpet, report them a little bit late. There were a lot of ways to kind of finagle your way around the system. But these days, it's basically an impossibility. The market is so instantaneous now that trying to fudge the rules like that's just not going to fly. So order flow now, I think if you're not trading with order flow, you're missing half the story. Is what it comes down to. Again, that's for me. Because for me, the volume really solidifies what's happening in the market, right? I can tell you right now, given what the volume is telling us, that we don't have enough to stop this market from going up. It doesn't mean it can't. But just that alone, by itself, adds an incredible amount of confidence, which helps a lot in terms of pulling the trigger. There's, like I said, I find it invaluable for me personally, especially when trying to build context. Yeah, no problem. Over on the S&P, we've got... Jeez, oh Pete, this thing is just about as strong of a V-bottom as you could possibly ask for. Looking for the volume from the bottom all the way up to the top because we are basically at the top still. 42.81 quarter, we're not that far away. We have a POC that shifted up to 42.3950. We can see where that took place, and that could be creating a scenario where if the market does want to rally higher, that creates a midpoint for a projection way up in the stratosphere. Let's see, where would that even go to? If we bring that all the way up to the POC, pop that up here, 43.55. Lordy, we got some upside momentum. Now, you know, the thing here to be said is that this market has literally no pullback. I think the biggest pullback that they've had was an L1, even down there, L1. Couldn't even make it back to an L1, and none of these have made it back to the L1. So eventually, buyers will be looking for that pullback back to L1 or even better, L2, right? When you have a string of 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, eventually when it does pull back, that deeper pullback usually wants to shove down into like the 2s or the 3s, and that's where they're going to create that decision point. So down here, around the 30s to 4200s, that 30-point range, that's going to be the big zone of interest for the buyers to try to pick it back up. If it even happens, right? If we're looking at the volume, we can see that volume is very aggressively rivaling the POC up here, and we've got another one right there. Well, it's not going to take much before the POC is overtaken. So having a POC shift to the upside on the S&P, likely going to be a bit sooner. Over on gold, we are finally breaking to the downside. That was after we saw several perpetual failures of trying to get back above the POC. We've now broken underneath it, and the market is driving down. Remember, they did shift it to the downside. So while back here off of the highs, if we drag that all the way before the fall, right, before the drop through the floor, we can see that the POC finally after ages, shifted to the downside, and that's where all the resistance was. Pretty obvious what happened there, huh? All the buyers tried to get it going before. I mean, total failure to launch. They made a new high and then dumped all the way down to a new low. Quick, minor new high, and it's now failing back down. So, I mean, everything hinged off of these failures here. And now that we have this confirmed, I know it feels incredibly late to be selling, and it probably is. It'd be better off to sell a little bit further up. But this does open the door for some potential really big drops here. Especially considering how long gold has been consolidated here. That's nuts. On crude oil, crude getting a good old spike to the upside. Nice megaphone going on here with a new high above the top. It's so shallow I can't even draw it. And down to the lows, which is just wide enough to actually draw. We pinged off of the lows. We've got a undertow coming off of the base, has been for a while since the market's been driving down. We're at a megaphone, right? We already know. It should be blatantly obvious that crude oil is in an uptrend. I don't think I need to say that, but it is in a very obvious uptrend. And any pullback that happens, a lot of buyers are just going to be looking to buy it. Like, yes, please, finally. I can't even go back far enough to see where the bottom of this freaking move is. So let's go back a little further. Let's go to 60 days. Hello? There we go. All right. Back on May 21 is when all of that kicked off. So as far as the bottom, all the way up to the top, which is incredibly far out there. This is something that likely isn't going to be super useful, but we'll see kind of where this POC is, because this will give us an idea of what the market's attempting to do. Come on. There we go. All right. Where's the POC? The POC just got top weighted. The buyers just tried breaking above the highs, and they just failed down to a new low. If sellers were going to take over, right here was the spot. Where we are now is a bit of a problem for those sellers, right? That's a toughie. We've broken back above the 73.20s. If we're looking at the short-term POC just from the top, this would be a little bit more concise in telling us what to expect. We can see that the POC cluster was not far off, but 73.04. They broke back above that. If the market's going to pull back anywhere, 20 to 04 is the hot spot. That thing's an inferno, just waiting for buyers to pull back to. Primarily because a lot of shorts will have given it a shot there, and they just got obliterated. The fact that the shorts got ran over in an already excruciatingly bullish market should tell you everything that you need to know about what's going to happen next. So, I mean, as far as upside continuation goes, it's looking pretty good for crude. Don't really want to be a buyer way up here, though. On the euro, we are breaking down along with gold. Gold did lose its grip. Now, if I remember, I don't think the euro shifted their POC yet, did they? I thought that was still up there in the 22s. Yep, still up there, 22,135. Still no POC shift, which is a massive problem for the longs. If the longs were stuck, they haven't done enough work to shift their average down, which means that the floor, it's still open. It's ready to fall. Just a matter of how far it wants to fall more than anything else. If we're looking at it on the narrower from the bottom up to, well, that more recent high, we can see the POC balance point was right there. Lost their grip. Not looking good. At least not for the bulls. Now, on the other side, talking about bulls here, this is something that we finally have gotten. We've been waiting for this forever. Right? We've been talking about how Bitcoin, the important thing that really has to happen is that we've got to not only break this high, but we've also got to break above some of these previous major highs. We're right there. They're finally grinding their way up into that point. Higher low, higher high. That's what a trend needs, right? We haven't broken above it by much. I would really like to see it get up to 37 or so as proof, and then pull back. But if we're looking at the overall momentum here, this is what the buyers need for a continuation up. My major concern is going to be that this is super early to the party. And as far as a reversal off of the lows, the reversal off of the lows was a nearly to the tick L5. With an L5, if we do break above the highs, that next pullback is usually just a touch deeper as far as a trend, and it usually means that it's going to be L2, L3. So the next pullback, even if we do break above the highs, given the fact that we just came off of an L5, would make more sense to see a slightly deeper pullback. Doesn't have to, but that would make much more sense as far as a structure is concerned. Measured move continuation to the upside projects upside targets at like 37,005. We got some room. Over on Ethereum, we do have that higher low and higher high in the near term, but there is a bit of a problem. We haven't broken the previous structural swing high, and that one's got a ways to go. You know, Bitcoin's sitting right on top of it, but Ethereum, I mean, that's all the way up near 2,300. We've got a little more to go here until that job's done. About another 100, 120 bucks. We'll see. Finally, gold's awake slightly. Yeah, no joke, right? After what, like 2 weeks of consolidation? It's about time. Yikes. Looking at the near term as far as what's going on from the daily and kind of zooming in from there, but nothing's changed. We've got another really strong bull bar on the daily. I don't even want to pull the chart up. It's just straight up. We haven't even broken a previous daily candle's low since the 21st. None of them. Not a single daily low has been broken since the 21st. And that break on the 21st was a gargantuan bear trap that suckered everyone in at the low just to rip their face off before that rally. So, I mean, even getting down to a previous day's low would be a zone of interest. I don't know if we're going to have that yet. As far as the 60-minute chart goes, honestly, it doesn't really paint any different of a picture. The NASDAQ is waiting for a pullback, but we have no signs that the POC is changing. We have no signs that the sellers are trying to push back yet. Everything is still pointed straight up into the sky. So we just got to approach it that way, I suppose. Looking at, I mean, the 15-minute chart zooming in just a little bit closer to the last few days. It's fairly obvious that the last few days from top to eventual bottom ended up way over here before another jump to the upside. So as far as a pullback leg goes, we can measure that up from the impulse top to bottom, and that gives us a POC cluster right about in the middle there and around 55. Now, if we draw a line across that, it's fairly obvious that the market has already utilized that zone as support and resistance. But since it's deviated away from it so much and now broken a new high, if the market is going to pull back, what more logical place would there be than a beautiful retest of some of that previous inside structure? Get back inside here. We know there's nothing to hold this up. It's just a giant blow-off. There's a lot of open ground to cover if it wants to start breaking lower. Again, we were talking about that yesterday, right? There's a lot of open ground when the market doesn't stop going up. But remember, it hasn't stopped going up. Don't get stuck holding a bag short when the market is still screaming through the sky. It doesn't make any sense. You've got to wait for some proof. We don't have that yet. So, going into the open, not that there's, not that there's really been much of anything. We've got the Asian session to Euro session slightly down stacked, I guess. But after the Euro session completed, they did pop into a new high, and that's sort of what we're really stuck on. I mean, it had a deep pullback down to a quick new low, reverse back up to a new high, and now we're kind of struggling here. Definitely feel the sellers trying to get this to move down, but it's not working in their favor very well, that's for sure. As far as the impulse leg to the downside goes, that POC is way down at the floor, 14,483. So if longs are long, they're in at a pretty good price. Got the open right around the corner here. Let's see what this wants to do. Zones of interest, I mean, from like a swing perspective, today feels like we're on the edge of a big breakout move, but maybe that's just hopes talking, so we've really got to play it on both sides of things here. Any major zone of interest, the one massive one that stands out is the S&P at 4239.50. That one's huge, right? If the S&P can pull back that far, that's the hot spot. That would be the trampoline, the launch pad, the thing that's waiting to just rip this thing all the way up to the sky. Right there, 4239.50. I don't know if it's made it back there or if it's going to today or if it's going to be a week from now or never, but that would be the hot spot at the moment. On gold, as far as a continuation down, honestly, I think this thing just keeps falling lower, but if it fails through the bottom, The very obvious concern is a massively detached 3-press low. That's way far down there. Tons of room. So 1728 is the downside objective. You got another like $25 to $30 to the downside on gold to go yet. Plenty of room. On crude oil, oh man, this one's a little bit more difficult because of the way that it's setting up. If I were going to be looking to buy this area in the 73.20s to 04s, the stop would have to be below the low. And the only way that that would make sense would be from a scalper or from a swing trader's perspective at 2 to 1 to get the target within the highs in a viable location. The entry point would have to actually be sub-settlement. We would need a pretty sharp pullback here on crude to get the zone in the right place. If it can, though, 72.60s, 72.50s, that's the launch pad for crude. That's where all of the longs can fit a 2 to 1 in back up into the highs. I don't know if they'll make it that far back. I mean, it looks like it's already starting to scream, but nothing else really standing out too much yet. So we'll give it some time. Got the open around the corner here in about 8.5 minutes or so, give or take. Although we are in a gigantic range, just out of morbid curiosity. Yep. I was going to say, it would make a lot of sense to have that POC sitting right where we are now. Sellers are trying to get it to go down, but unsuccessfully. And now that we're breaking above it, that's a great sign for the longs. What about from the top to the bottom? Right in the middle again. Gross. Very beginning of the day. Right in the middle. Okay. All the way up to the inside high. Right in the middle. Man, look at where all of these POCs are. Aside from this outlier up here. Everything else right inside there. These 485s to 80s, we got a lot of volume taking place in there, and it does seem to be that the market is spending the majority of its time above that. I have to assume that those are buyers. If we start breaking underneath the lows, maybe that's where the problem set in. Modifying the POC a little bit further forward, 483 is still the low, although they are definitively challenging some volume up here. S&P still sitting with an outside gap up at the moment. See what they want to get going here. More continuation to the upside. We're breaking out above that previous impulse POC now. Let's see if they have what it takes to finish the job, or if this is just going to keep being a range. The Euro session highs are obviously a brick wall. Psychologically and structurally. 14,500, that big halfway point. Oh, did I have the, did I set the date wrong? Let me check here. Give me 1 second, guys. Oops, thank you. Didn't realize I was muted. Let me try again. Gotta wait for it to show up with some. There we go. So what you're seeing here is you've got these kind of muted colors that are, ironically enough, muted colors going on here. These are just your normal buying and selling, right? This is buying the bid, selling the ask, nothing crazy. Everything is happening just normal. When you see this light up in bright green or bright pink, what that means is orders are getting filled above the bid or below the ask. Below the bid and above the ask. That is displaying either a lot of stops getting hit or just a lot of aggression. Either way, there is a large amount of orders that are hit so quickly that the market is forced to jump up, and you see these bright colors start flushing in. That's what those mean. So like right there, this big batch of pink right here, all of those orders got filled below the bid. So at the time, the bid might have been at 2, but they got filled at 175, or, well, actually it would have been down here. So that might have been at 275, but they got filled at 250. Maybe they were stops. You've had more at 25. So, I mean, look at the way that this all flushed in. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and maybe 2 more were filled. So it might have been like a 20 contract order that got stopped out. And it just got single filled with slippage. Either way, it's demonstrating that a lot happened very quickly. So when you start seeing that light up like a Christmas tree, that could just be a sign that the market's getting ready for a big breakout, or it could be a sign that it's hitting a lot of stops. Obviously, context comes with that, but. $9.30 right around the corner here, going into the open. So like right there, did you see that big flash of green show up? Now, correlate that to what happened in price. What just happened in price? There is a gap from close to open. That's what I mean, right? So many orders hit at the same time that it forced the market to open at a different price. $9.30 hits. We have obviously broken above that POC point at 483. That's a heck of a reversal candle off the top, though. Holy crap. Let's see if we can get a little bit of a snapback to those 83s. A lot of orders slapping in here. Sheesh. We're back down into those 83s. We do have responsiveness off of those 83s. I got bottom bid and I didn't get a fill. Nice bear bar to the downside, trying to take things back lower. I didn't get a fill on the long, but now they've closed underneath it. I got to see them churn back up. Starting to crack underneath. That could be a sign that 83 would be a point for sellers to push off of. This is that jumbo zone of POCs. Cracking through. Technically, this is all part of the impulse leg now. S&P did open up with an outside gap to the upside, testing 83 as a zone of resistance. Nice rejection back down again. Oh, maybe. That thing jumped right back up. And back down again. A very quick new low, followed up with immediate bullish spiking back up. Bulls are trying to get something going with that POC at 483, still causing some difficulty. They're trying to crack above. Ooh, very nice snap above. I'm going to look for a continuation pop back to the upside on this dip. And nice objective back with a quick snap higher. I like that rotation back above POC, makes a lot of sense, and the more the bulls push against the sellers here, the better. Whoa, really, really weak bear bar. Holy cow. Can they get down there again? Nice quick little snap. Nice. Playing off that 83. Bulls driving back to the upside. Whoo, man, what a bull bar. Giant rally to the upside. Back up to the Euro session highs. Careful up here. Remember the last time around, it looked like it was really strong at the open, and then it dive bombed all the way down to the lows, but it missed the low. It's very important that it missed the low. The Euro session's not doing anything, jumping up to settlement. We do have the first 5-minute bar out of the way. That's a heck of a 5-minute bar on the S&P. The NASDAQ, not so much. That all happened down there at 81.75. And for the S&P, $42.86.75. Market's attempting to pull back. Man, it bounced off that Euro session high really hard. POC for the short side, or at least assumably the short side, is very top weighted up at the Euro session high. That's not exactly a surprise. 97.75 is that POC on the short term. And it tapped it. Yikes, to the tick. Come on, break on through that. There they go. Oof, no, the POC closed right with it. There's too much volume trading up here. It's jumping around a little bit. Now they're breaking away above it, 499 quarter. Oh, just kidding. Everything just got backfilled all the way down to 98.50. Wow. More breakout continuation to the upside. Let's see if we can get the bulls involved this time around. We've cycled all the way back up to the highs now, 516.75. Like to see if maybe they can get one more pulse down to like the sixes. Bulls taking it up through a new high. Got about a minute and a half left on the S&P. If they can close a halfway decent bull bar up like this, then I wouldn't mind buying below it at settlement POC retest. Another day of all-time highs on the NASDAQ. Yep. Here we go. Next news announcement's at 10 o'clock. That's the only news announcement. A lot of volume being put in up in the 23s to 25s. POC cluster still hanging out back at 498.50 though. See which way they decide to go here so far. Still kind of chopping up and down and up and down. Looking across the board here, because there are a few areas of interest that are setting up. The S&P is up at the top. The NASDAQ is up at the top, all-time highs. Bitcoin, Ethereum, all rallying aggressively. Nice. Sellers might simply be looking for a two-legged correction down and be back in like the 505s, kind of around the settlement price. See if we can get some pushing down there. Whoa. Got my 18% profit on BCH this morning. Nice. Gigantic bull bar back to the upside. It's forcing traders to buy very high. Little pullback zone down in like the 12s or 13s would be where buyers would be a little more interested. Not to say that it can't go now, it definitely can, but I would rather buy a dip. Got into the 15s. Okay. Trying to get back above the short-term POC, 1675. It's pinned right up at the top. Bull engulfing candle to get the job done? Sheesh. S&P is dropping a little bit further. Whoa, that bear bar on the NASDAQ. Okay. What a train wreck up here. What happened? Am I correct in saying that the NASDAQ and the MNQ have low volume at this time? Let me take a look here. Where'd my order flow thing go? Or not my order flow. 921 contract has 105,000 contracts on it. I mean, I feel like that's all right. I wouldn't say that's too low. I mean, it's not like crazy high or anything, but... I mean, typically the MNQ usually has about 1.5 to 2 times the amount of volume. So 168,000. So if it's at 168,000, it's 68% of the way there. I mean, that's not too bad. It's about right. Again, it's nothing crazy. It's not like a huge amount of volume or anything, but I wouldn't say it's low, no. Man, what a mess. Bulls are trying to sustain price action above the 1750 short-term pullback POC. So if they're going to break above the highs, that's the kind of momentum they need. Not looking the best at these all-time highs, is it? But it just keeps going up. More continuation up through new highs. 529.50 now. News right around the corner at 10 o'clock. You had about 15 minutes until that. 10 o'clock is also when things typically start slowing down or reversing. 10 to 10:30 is kind of like that morning reversal time. This has been basically nothing but straight up since the open. And realistically, if longs are still in it, it would kind of make sense for them to start taking profit while we're hitting all-time highs again. Well, I mean, what better place to take profit, you know? It's never been that high before. POC bumping around here a little bit. We've got close volume between a few different points, so it's not a huge surprise. Back below the POC, we do know that today is a bit more range bound. We cycled from the top down to a new low, tried making a new high, pulsed down to a new low, and then reversed straight up into the new high. Rotated all the way down, tried to make a new low, failed, then failed to make a new high, then failed to make a new low, and then finally rolled back up to the top. So from a structural perspective, I'm almost positive that's an L5, right? Yeah. It even closed underneath the L5 a little bit. I mean, they almost took the base, but they did hold. That was an L5. Typically after L5s, you get an L2. Let's see, are they following along? Well, I mean, close enough. It technically didn't test it, but I mean, we know what to expect after an L5. It held an L2, basically, and now they're trying to rotate back up to the highs. If they're going to keep this trend going, it's probably going to be L1s from there, which is what we're finding support off of. If they fail through the L1s, then we're likely going to dive back down to a 3 or potentially even a 5 to rinse and repeat. We're in a range. that's trying to get a trend. Give me 1 second to be right back. Man, I don't know what this thing's trying to do here. Let's go back to the last pullback. That last dip there, I mean, barely sizable enough to consider much outside of the impulse leg. I think this is all still part of the same. And the fact that we're chopping underneath that POC on the impulse of 1675, I mean, that makes things a bit tough. And if we spread that out a little bit further, we can see that they did shift up to 22. I mean, everything is kind of demonstrating that sellers are attempting to at least give it a short-term shot. But if the L1's not holding, L3 at the very least, right? That's confusion. But typically trends hold L1s, L2s. Wish we weren't at all-time highs. That makes things awkward, huh? S&P is done. Wow, just about nothing. Still stuck on top of the POC, 42, 86, 75. There's just nothing happening there. The last bull bar around really doesn't prove anything, and we've got a lot of pressure coming in from the sell side. Again, the trend is very strong, higher, so going against that kind of trend wouldn't make any sense unless you're offsetting at least a little bit. $9.50, got 10 o'clock around the corner here. Kind of a slow start to the morning. The thing kind of jumped without me a little bit there, although we did get a couple nice scalps. Really wasn't a clean way in to get that follow-through one. Let's see if they can give something a bit nicer. Didn't quite hit that. Looks like they're trying to get the channel bottom to hold. All this resistance at the top of the L1, though, doesn't exactly make me feel too great. That could be earlier buyers who were trying to buy back here at 946. They might be exiting at break even on this secondary pop. See if they can keep it going. They're closing back above. Closing above. Maybe. Okay, yep, there it goes. Nice little wick pullback. There will be buyers hanging out in like the 22s, down to 21s in that area, just to see if they can try to pick it up for another pulse. Honestly, I would really like to see if I can get something a bit cleaner. This feels like they're really trying to trick people into buying super high when it's just a non-optimal place to be a buyer. Now, if we can take this move back underneath the POC back up again, that would help. That'd be nice. Not retested as resistance, though. That does not help. That's the opposite. Uh-oh. See what they want to do here. Looking across the board as well. Oh, yeah. Now, crude oil churned right above that POC. As far as the continuation to the upside, there's a few different approaches. If you're approaching it from the swing trader's perspective, we've already talked about that. It would be basically trade suicide to be putting an entry right at the POC. That doesn't make any sense. But from a scalper's perspective, if we can get a continuation pullback off to like 73.04, a retest back up to the highs at 73.50s to 60s would be the zone of interest. That would make a lot more sense. It's on the high probability side, which means you're risking more, right? You're increasing your risk to increase the probability. That's the trade-off. A couple different ways to look at crude oil, though. Nothing else is really there yet. Now, that would be a second long above that last bull bar. It's a kind of garbage bull bar, but given the bears and their... Well, okay, I was going to say, given the bears' lack of follow-through, but there they go. All right. Come on now, grab that L2. It's right underneath that inside swing. $18.50 is the pullback POC so far. Impulse is up to the top. Wow. It's just unrelenting to the upside. We've got news in 3.5 minutes, which will definitely impact things. But the fact that we're churning back up again with another higher low, this is kind of like a rolling correction where it's not actually making any new lows. It's all higher highs, higher lows, even in a pullback. Pullback. Air quotes. Now, if this bull attempt fails, then we're probably going to get that deeper dive down to L3 or potentially even 4 or 5. Look at the S&P, too. Yikes. 88.50 is nasty. Hopefully this news will kick it in the butt a little bit. News right around the corner, though. All right, there we go. All right, don't forget, since we are getting a little bit closer into the 10 o'clock period, we are doing that giveaway at 2,000 subscribers. If you haven't seen the video yet, it's on the main page of SSFTG. It's also the last video upload that I did to to the channel. So if you haven't gone through that, make sure to subscribe, like the video, etc., and make sure to get your comments in that so you can be part of the giveaway. You don't want to miss that. Everybody has a chance to win something, even if they're already a VIP. Market's still just disgusting looking. We're holding higher lows still. Ooh, lordy. It was looking like a nice bull pop, but we're still underneath that POC. 10 o'clock news right around the corner. Got about a half a minute. Nice little flush down to 6s or 5s. That'd be fantastic on the news. At 10 o'clock, we will also be transitioning into the extended session. So for VIPs and members, well, for the YouTube side of things, you just have to go to the communities page. It posts a link there every day. For the VIPs, you just hang out in the room and listen to me talk to myself for a couple minutes. Sheesh. $10 o'clock news. Big wipe underneath the lows and then jerked right back up again. Could not close above the POC. Right back down again. This is starting to potentially suggest that a lot of traders just jump ship. A lot of these longs might have just bailed. Careful on this next dive. All right, anyway, we are at 10 o'clock. So let's let this the news jitters get it out of its system, and we'll transition over to the extended one. So for those of you who are ducking out this morning, I hope you had a fantastic trading day so far. Really didn't get a whole lot going there, but we had a couple nice ones out of the gates, and then man, it felt like it was grinding our teeth the whole way up here. Hopefully things get a little bit easier as we go into the extended session. But if you're going to be ducking out, I hope you had a great day. If you have any questions that I may have missed, feel free to shoot me an email, jhb@ssftg.com, and I'll get those covered for you from there. Enjoy the rest of the day, rest up, and we will see all of you tomorrow. And for the rest of you, just hang tight. Look for the communities page for the link, and you can listen to me talk to myself for a minute. All right? Have a good one. We'll talk to you all later. Thanks.